Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward, and this is Face to Face. Our guest this week is singer-songwriter and artist Tom Wilson. Wilson is a three-time Juno Award-winning musician who has been a part of Junk House, Blackie and the Rodeo Kings, and Lee Harvey Osmond. He's also an accomplished artist whose work has been shown across Canada and the United States. It wasn't until Tom was in his 50s that he learned the truth about his identity, something he detailed in his 2017 memoir, Beautiful Scars. Tom, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for doing the show, and thanks for having us here in your studio.
I know, it's a wreck, isn't it?
It's
good. My apologies, but it's a workshop. It's a workshop, you know what I mean?
Some beautiful art here, and my first time in Hamilton, so appreciate you having us here. Like so many other kids, myself included, I think a lot of us grew up wanting to be a rock star. What was it like for you to actually achieve that dream?
Horrible. It's horrible. I don't know why anybody would want to do that. I don't really know why anybody would want to be a movie star or, rock star, any of that thing with star connected to it. The interest, would be to create art, to make something that wasn't here yesterday, to do something to advance the planet in a positive way. That would be the trick.
Right. I was a huge fan of Junk House growing up. Going Out of My Head is still one of my favorites. What was life like for you back in those days? Junk House was a pretty big band.
Oh, it was hectic, we were a bunch of knuckleheads from Hamilton. We thought that we were going to be, I was kind of, committed to the idea that I was going to be a 401 musician for my entire life. 401 musician is the highway that stretches from the Quebec border down to Detroit. And you can get on that highway, back in the day in particular, you could get on that highway and go from Detroit all the way to Montreal, and then do it again, and you that would take up, half of your year, you know what I mean? There's just so many places to play. So that's where I thought we were going to be. It ended up that the Junk House got signed, and they gave us a bunch of money, and they gave us, a bunch of opportunities, and we took advantage of that, and ended up touring for pretty well 2.5 years all around the world. And it robs you of time, and it robs you of your soul in a way. Mind you, in those moments, I was committed to making the band as successful as possible. And the first record that we made was a free fall. It was written naturally. It all came out as an artistic expression, I guess you could say, if you wanted to. But after that, it started looking for hits. You had to write hits for the radio. You had to write songs that could be visualized on Much Music and MTV and in Europe and the U.S. And that's really when the intent of what we were doing kind of fell apart. Other than that, we were sometimes getting on private jets and flying to Europe, and we were touring with acts that, that I only really dreamed about, playing with people like Bob Dylan, and being able to perform with my idols, really, and being around that whole touring atmosphere. So that part of it was exciting. The fan in me loved it all. The artist watched the art actually fall out of it, and the man pretty well lost his life to it for a little while.
I think for anybody who's read your book, Beautiful Scars, which we're going to talk more about, knows that you were living the rock star lifestyle, or that maybe stereotypical rock star lifestyle, but that all came crashing down for you. What was that like for you when you were, you talked about in the book how you'd become a threat to those around you that you loved?
Well, I did become a threat. I mean, you start to indulge in that lifestyle, and you start giving in and believing that that you're the guy up on the TV, on the video screen, you know, or the guy up on stage. You're the belle of the ball every night, you know. The lights are on you. You're the singer. You're playing guitar. There's women, and there's drugs and alcohol, and it's just a very unhealthy lifestyle. Unhealthy for your physical being. Also, very unhealthy for your spiritual being, because you're buying into something that it's like staring in the mirror for too long. You know what I mean? You don't get much done when you're staring in the mirror, and you don't get much done when you're buying into other people's perception of you, or something that has been created around you. I never really even considered, you know, any kind of stardom or anything. I was just doing a job, but I was doing a job that took me on tour buses and on the planes, and it's a lifestyle that you have to find some kind of way to destroy yourself in order to distract yourself from, you know, missing home.
What impact, I guess, on your career, your art, your life did it have getting over that period of time?
Oh, I'm still getting over that period of time, you know. I mean, I still go to sleep at night wondering who that person was, you know. I'm far enough down the road. I've been clean and sober. This is my 22nd year of being clean and sober, but at the same time, I still know that guy is out there somewhere, you know. Even though I don't identify with him, and I don't really know him, I know that that was me 30 years ago. It's not a very comfortable. It's not a very comfortable thought. Lou, you just have to calm down, honey.
Junk House lasted 3 albums, very successful, but you went on to work in the supergroup Blackie and the Rodeo Kings, Lee Harvey Osmond. How does that music differ for you from what you were doing with Junk House?
Well, just to be very clear, Junk House was a passionate project. But Blackie and the Rodeo Kings started as a tip of the hat, as a tribute to a guy that really got me believing, a guy that opened up the door of possibilities for me to walk through, Willie P. Bennett. And because of its starting place, it wasn't so much about putting ego into it as paying a tribute to music that I truly loved and that inspired me. So the starting point was from a different place, and the execution was from a different place, and as a result, that band has been together for 25 years. I don't know how we've done it, but it didn't have all the trappings of an indulgent rock and roll band. It was creating music that the way I wanted Junk House to be, creating music that you could play around the kitchen table, and that's really the prime communication area for playing songs, or reading each other's stories, or telling each other stories. It's where I heard all the stories of my youth about the people that ended up being my relatives in Ganawake. You know what I mean? I'd never been to Ganawake, but I had a vision of it just because of the stories that went on around my kitchen table. And opening up people's imaginations around the kitchen table is a really old tradition for folk music, for poets, for artists, and for kind of the lost kids, you know, who are looking for their identity. And I guess that I was one of them.
And we're going to talk about that Ganawage family, that identity that you're searching for. We just got to step aside for a quick break, and then we'll continue the conversation here on Face to Face with Tom Wilson. Welcome back to Face to Face. Our guest this week is singer, songwriter, artist, and much more, Tom Wilson. Tom, let's talk a bit about your book, Beautiful Scars, Got It Here, and you write in the book that at a very young age you had some pretty big questions and doubts about who you were. Mm-hmm. That's some pretty heavy stuff to deal with at such a young age.
Well, it's pretty heavy stuff to deal with at an old age, too. The quest for identity for adopted kids is, for some adopted kids, is a lifelong journey. And my belief is that without identity, we have nothing to offer the world. Without knowing who we are, how can we possibly inspire other people? So, at a young age, I thought I was in the wrong place. I thought that I was in the wrong home. I joked now, but at the time I really thought that I was just dropped out of a spaceship and dropped into the backyard, and that's how I ended up in that home, you know, because it just seemed also, didn't seem wrong. It just seemed like I wasn't in the place I was supposed to be. And I have to tell you that I was in a home that gave me as much love as it possibly could. And in their own way, Bunny and George Wilson gave me a fighting chance and gave me the opportunities that maybe I otherwise wouldn't have had. I don't know. When you don't know anything else, how do you know? But I suspected that Bunny and George weren't my mother and father. And when I asked Bunny about it at the age of 4, she told me, well, she goes, there's some things that I'm never going to tell you about. In fact, there's some things that I'm going to take to my grave about you, which was a rather dramatic answer for a 4-year-old kid. But it's where she stood till the day she died. She kept that secret of where I was from. I was born here in Hamilton. My mother, who acted as my cousin my entire life. In fact, after I found out that I was adopted at the age of 56 from a complete stranger, I was driving my cousin Janie home from one of my grandkids' birthday parties. Cousin Janie's always been in my life. Cousin Janie was there my graduation. Cousin Janie was there for championship hockey games. Cousin Janie was there the first time I played Massey Hall. And I was driving Janie home, and I said, Jane, you know what? I found out a couple weeks ago that Mom and Dad weren't really my mom and dad, and if you can tell me anything about that, please do. And she turned to me in that moment and said, Tom, I don't know how to tell you this. I'm sorry, and I hope you forgive me, but I'm your mother. So that was the moment where all my doubts about myself, about where I was supposed to be, who I could have been, all came tumbling. They all came flipping, like in an old movie, you know, of cards, of memories that just came flashing back. My entire life started flashing before my eyes. And, you know, they talk about your life flashing before your eyes when you die. Well, when you're being reborn, your life flashes before your eyes. And I started to accumulate all of that and nurture myself in a different way with this knowledge that I was Janie's son, that my father was a Mohawk from Ganawage, that my mother, you know, Janie is a Mohawk from Ganawage. I grew up, jokingly I say, I grew up thinking I was a big, puffy, sweaty Irish guy my whole life, and here I am, a Mohawk. And what responsibility comes with that? Because when you discover your identity at such a late age, for me, it didn't come with self-pity, and it didn't come with changing my values of sobriety, but it did come with a responsibility to do everything that I could, not only to understand my culture and my home, but also to honor it with every stroke of color, with every word I write, with every melody that I sing. Because I can't become a Mohawk the way I want to, the way my brothers did. My brother Kyle, 20 years ago, 21 years ago, he was at ground zero on 9/11. He was there deconstructing the scene, pulling iron, pulling metal out so the firefighters could get in and do their job. You know, he was an iron worker. You know, he experienced that. He had that knowledge. I don't have that knowledge. I come from 7 generations of iron workers, but I'm kind of freaked out to get on a stepladder to change a light bulb, you know what I mean? So that, I don't have those experiences as a kid growing up in Ganawage. During the Oka crisis, my brothers, you know, filled out their wills at their kitchen tables and went out to the woods to fight a war that they didn't think they were coming home from. In the meantime, I was here in Hamilton, and I was reading about it in the paper and watching it on TV and listening to it on the radio, and my blood was boiling, and I didn't know why. Now I know why. So those experiences, those important experiences in their lives, and the men and my sisters, the women that they are, I can't come to it the same way they did. Even though I've been a Mohawk all my life, I still have to feel it. I have to grasp it. And instead of me just being a taker, I have to be a giver. I have to be somebody that gives back to that culture in every way that I can, which is why I create this art, which is why I'm writing a second book, and which is why I continue to write music that stands for the importance of the indigenous population on this land. You know, my mother, Janie, is 82. My cousin, my mother, Janie. And we're sitting around in my backyard having a little dinner on a Sunday. And she was telling a story about in grade 3, she was in day school, day residential school. And the teachers started to tell them, take a good look around this classroom, because these are the last Indians you're ever going to see. You're the last Indians that are ever going to be walking the planet. And, you know, some 78 years later, 75 years later, she's sitting at a dinner table with me, her son, my kids, her grandkids, and their kids, her great-grandchildren. So that spirit of survival, the fact that we're still here is a miracle. The fact that I'm still here is a miracle. And the fact that I only found out by complete error that I'm a Mohawk is some kind of sick tribute to colonialism, almost winning the fight, almost winning the game, because the person that I was before was a complete product of colonialism. Who I am now is a survivor of colonialism.
Love it. Tom, more to talk about here. We just got to step aside for one more quick break, and then we'll continue the conversation here on Face to Face with Tom Wilson. Welcome back to Face to Face. Our guest this week is Tom Wilson. And Tom, you touched on a little, you can see it all around us. You're a pretty accomplished artist as well.
Oh, I don't know about that, but thank you.
Was this something you were always passionate about, or did this kind of come in your later days here?
Well, there's a couple things about this. I have a broader statement about what I do, which is I'm actually not a painter. I just like to paint. You
Right.
know, I'm not technically. I just paint what I can, and I like doing it. I'm also dyslexic, so I have difficulty reading books, but somehow I manage to be able to write them these days. And I'm 47 years. I can honestly say that I'm really not a very good musician, but I love to sing and I love to write songs. So that's kind of an odd place to be, you know. Maybe I just have the heart of an artist, or someone who would love to be an artist. So I just keep doing shit, you know. That's basically it. The paintings, I started painting in 1997. The second time I stopped drinking. I was writing a record for Junk House, in fact, and I wanted to do something productive rather than destructive every day. So instead of going to the bottle, I started painting, and that was 1997. And I've been painting ever since. And it's taken on a new intent, and it's taken on a new intensity, a detail at least, in my paintings, in my work. But this is something that I actually don't get to enough in the last month or so. I got to finish this painting is what I have to do.
Well, like I said, beautiful work. I don't know what you can say about this, but you mentioned it when we walked in, and that's that there's a documentary in the works for Beautiful Scars. What can you tell us about that?
Well, everything takes a long time in the film business. I mean, there's a couple things that we're working on. One is this documentary that Shane Belcourt is directing, and they wanted to do a documentary originally on me. And I thought, well, that's too much. It really is looking in the mirror way too long. So I thought that doing it on the book would be better. It'd be a better film to do it on the quest for identity and for the understanding of who we are, and using that to be able to move forward. So that's what I believe it's called The Beautiful Scars of Tom Wilson. And we did some things in it that were rather fascinating. My mother and I went home to Ganawage together for the very first time and walked around and looked at her childhood houses, things like that. There were important moments, and there are very emotional moments in it. So I think we definitely got the right guy with Shane Belcourt to make this film.
Absolutely. Very excited for that, though. Still go and check out the book, Beautiful Scars, wherever you buy your books.
Also, this has been turned into a play that opens in 2022. That's a younger version of me.
Wow. Looking forward to that as well. Is that going to tour around, or...?
Well, yeah, I hope so. They want me to act in it, but I don't know how to act. The one thing I definitely don't know how to do is act. I've been in like 6 movies. People come to my dressing rooms and they say, "You've got to be in our film. We're making this film and we want you to play God." And I say, that's great, but I don't know how to act. And then they keep, saying, "Well, no, we have to have you in our movie." And sure enough, I'll say, "Oh, well, okay, you're paying me, great. I'm going to be in your movie." And we get in a setup like this, and the lights and the cameras, and the director goes, "Okay, action." And I start acting, and there's like this pause in the room, and the director finally says, "Wow, you were right. You really can't act." I actually don't know how. So the play, they want me to be in the play. Maybe I'll be in the play. Let's find out. But it opens in Hamilton, and it'll probably tour across the country over the next couple years. I actually don't know how the theater business works. So,
well, for somebody who doesn't think they can act, paint, sing, or do anything, you've had quite a career.
Keep going.
Tom, unfortunately, that's all the time we have. I wish we did keep you a bit longer, but really appreciate you doing the show and having us here in
Great
in Hamilton.
Pleasure to have you guys.
That is all the time we have for this week. Of course, you can catch this episode or any other episode as a podcast by visiting our website, aptnnews.ca/face-to-face podcast. I'm Dennis Ward. Thanks so much for being with us. We'll see you back here next week.